the ever-changing weather around the world, ever-diverse terrain and roads across the world. With Kumho Tyre that has conquered all, there is no road you cannot go. Go with Kumho. Kumho Tyre.
I ain't playing weak, no, I'm playing for keeps. Can't stop me, I'm a legend. I run with the crew that's making the moves. Get out of the way, we coming through. We got this, never stopping, and we won't lose. No, we can't lose. Yeah! Are you ready? Yeah! We are the legends. We are the legends. Yeah! Are you ready? We are the legends. We are the legends.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again here for the V8 Veterans Season 15. It is the Split 2 action from Round 4, located here in the streets of Long Beach. I am, of course, your commentator, Hamish Munro, who, well, if you're used to vets by now, you should know that we are here each and every week giving you the rundown of the proceedings here in the over 40s warriors, fighting it out week in and week out in the supercars to see who is truly the best. Of course, if you are not used to Split 2 action here for VA Veterans, well, it's one of the most closely contested splits in all the VA Veterans. Of course, 3 splits being the norm nowadays for this league. Split 2 is, well, it's where a lot of the action can come from. As I'm just trying to get all the overlays sorted so everything works out for us here for today's broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Mark out into the chat already on YouTube. Good afternoon to you, sir. So basically, if you are not used to action around here at Long Beach, well, you know that we like to talk about danger zones here in the Veterans. This whole circuit is a danger zone in its own right. As we see the cars now, they are coming around here for the warm-up session. They've got about 5 minutes to get their cars warmed up after qualifying and the hour-long practice. Again, anyone watching, if you want to get into live chat, have a chat to us throughout the race. Love for you to do so. One of the best things about doing vets is having a conversation with the drivers about the race at hand, how it went for them, and how the setup felt and how the track felt as well. So I will try and get these overlays sorted as we sort of discuss the race ahead. Of course, if you're not familiar with Long Beach, well, it's a place almost in legendary status in terms of the carnage and the entertainment that it can bring here in iRacing, but also in real-life racing as well. Of course, well known for the 100 minutes of Long Beach in IMSA, as well as the IndyCar Grand Prix that happens here. It's also a circuit known for Formula D as well. So sit tight, get ready, because we've got 150 Ks around this short street circuit here. It is well, one of my favourites on iRacing. It is probably one of my favourite street circuits in the world. It's just such a challenge to tackle, being surrounded by these concrete barriers, the tight turns, and the long flowing main straight of this circuit. So if once again, if you are not used to the veterans, well, get ready, because this circuit on its normal day brings a bit of carnage, but V8 Veterans in its own right brings carnage as well. One race that I've been looking forward to over the past 4 rounds. Of course, if you missed last week's broadcast, we were out at Phillip Island, and wow, what an end to that race it was. Steve Grumley taking victory from Paul Hayes, and it was a battle all the way to the end, and an absolutely incredible showcase of speed by these drivers who just wanted to put on a show for the fans, and who just wanted to make themselves just an incredible force in terms of racecraft and entertainment factor on the broadcast. So as we now finally have the overlays all ready to go, so we are now in here. It should all be fine and dandy. So we will bring up the qualifying results for you just now, so we can have a look at where everyone ended up finishing. So Robbie Griffiths taking pole here at Long Beach. Oh, that's the race results. Wow. That's just giving it away, isn't it? Well, the qualifying results for today's qualifying session here. Yeah, in V8 Veterans, I still haven't fixed that logo in the bottom corner of the overlay. Todd Duggan taking pole position with a time of a 1 minute 18.995 there for Nova Simsports. Those Nova cars have been incredibly quick all season, and they look to have some absolutely incredible pace around this street circuit. Matt Monday will start this race, or will start this weekend as he did last weekend, on the front row of the grid for Fishy Motorsports there. James Boardman from Infinity Motorsports starting in P3 today, and then P4, Lorne McKee for Taipan Esports. P5, Shannon McMillan there, and then Robert Crow, who recently moved to Infinity Motorsport in between round 3 and 4, so he will be starting out this race for his new team for the first time. So finally found himself a home there. Obviously you see Robbie Griffiths for Fishy Motorsports in P7. P8, Gary Buckland, Damien Cross in P9, and then Mario Reale managed to get into the top 10, but we will go through the grid for this race prior to the proceedings, and we'll just quickly get all the info back up that we need here for this race. Once again, if you want to get involved, get into the chat. Love to talk to you throughout this race, although, as I mentioned, if you're not used to Long Beach, well, get ready, because this race is going to be one of legend, I can already predict, because, well, every race at Long Beach. Oh, as we see Reale into the wall there already in the warm-up at the end of the session. But we can now quickly bring up our starting grid for the race. As mentioned, Todd Duggan starts on pole today for Nova Simsports. P2, of course, as mentioned, on the front row of the grid, Matt Monday. James Boardman lines up in P3. Alongside him, Lorne McKee. P5, Shannon McMillan, with Robert Crow in P6. P7, Robbie Griffiths today. P8, Gary Buckland. P9 goes to Damien Cross. Then Mario Reale makes up the 10. Mark Houghton starting from P11, just ahead of Glenn Corbett for Hypersonic Racing. Then we have Mark Peck in P13. Andrew Hoffman starting from P14 today. Brett Douglas in P15. Todd Martin starting out of P16 here. P17, Peter Latham. P18 going to Steve Grumley. P19, Scott Weston there from Taipan Esports. P20 going to Craig Healy. So the two teammates starting alongside each other there. P21 from Shadow Racing goes to Ed Cullen. And then P22, Will Munro for Infinity Motorsports. P23, Daniel Sheriffs. And then P24 goes to Simon Farrington. P25, Richard Barella. Alongside him, Marty Hansen in P26. P27 going to Jason Chin. And P28 going to Michael Hayes. P29, it's lined up by Brett Taylor and then Fletcher Christian making up in P30. Jason McCartan in behind in P31. Rob Brower in P32, P33 going to Marty Atkins, and then P34, Greg Favell. Martin Hallinan starts from P35 today, and then our race control, Bruce McLeod in P36. And then a couple of drivers in behind, Braden O'Loughlin, P37, Ricky Hyde, and P38, and then P39 going to Matt McMillan. Actually, no, Bruce McLeod actually drives, but so he will start from P36 today. And that is our grid for this 150 Ks of Long Beach. Great to have Shane Patterson and Steve Murray in the chat here on the YouTube broadcast as well. And if anyone is watching on the Facebook Live video, be sure to get into that chat too, because I will actually be keeping an eye on it throughout this race. So I hope you are all ready for what could be one of the most exciting races we could see this season. Of course, Belle Isle last season was almost a race of legend, just with the amount of excitement and carnage that we got from that race. Of course, that was yet another concrete jungle event, although that race obviously is based in Detroit. We're now in the West Coast here for Long Beach. A bit of California concrete jungle love for the Long Beach circuit. The main... Bruce McLeod is the safety car. Okay, good. All right. So the other driver's starting in behind the safety car, so they must either be not getting a qualifying time in or they're starting from the pit lane. So we will await them all to grid up for today's race. We will hope that they can make their way round nice and cleanly. Of course, this is a super tight circuit. That final corner is a hairpin of death in terms of accidents that can happen. People shooting it down the inside, getting spun around. And then, of course, into turn 1 and also at the fountain as well at turn 2 and 3. So I hope you're all ready for what could be a monumental race today. Steve Murray saying, I think he will probably be doing a few laps in this race. In the Split 1 broadcast Thursday night, Scott Rankin said it was almost 100% chance of safety car in that race, and I'm going to agree with him in this one. Long Beach, not even just Long Beach, but any street circuit where you're surrounded by concrete walls, have almost zero runoff, you are almost 99% guaranteed to be getting a safety car out of the race. Split 2 being such a close spectrum of times throughout the whole field, drivers are going to be closer together, racing harder. Of course, Split 2 is one of the most highly contested series for all the veterans. It's probably the most highly contested split in terms of how close it is by the end of the season. So don't be surprised if Bruce is forced to do a couple of laps around this Long Beach circuit here today, ladies and gentlemen. So we will wait for everyone to finish gridding up. We're waiting on a couple of drivers now. James Boardman, I believe, needs to grid up, as well as Robert Crow. A couple in behind them as well that need to get in here. Split 1, Steve Murray said, Split 1 had 2 safety cars. Split 3, he thinks had 1. So we're going for 100% safety car usage. Steve, I think we are 100% guaranteed to get 100% safety car usage throughout the whole weekend here at Long Beach. I'm pretty sure Belle Isle had 100% safety car usage. So we are pretty much guaranteed that here today. So we will await for these cars to begin revving their engines, begin making their way around such a tightly contested circuit. So they're revving the engines now. We are getting ready here to go racing at Long Beach for the V8 veterans. And they are go. We see Robert Crow there lighting up the rear end a little bit, getting a little bit smoky there off the start. He seems to have bogged it just slightly, starting at a P6. But Todd Duggan will lead them into turn 1, and look at them all swarming like flies to an old piece of fruit. We'll have to see here if they can stay nice and clean into turn 1. Oh, is that contact already? It is. One of the Old Mate and Sons cars getting turned around nice and early here in this race, as all these drivers will attempt to make their way through the fountain section now. See Steve Grumley here, the winner last time out at Phillip Island. Going to see Richard Barella is getting pushed around a little bit in that WKMP Simsports car. Obviously has the Anzac Day livery on the car for this weekend, with Anzac Day coming up on Tuesday night. So these drivers need to just mitigate the pressure a little bit, as we will check out the front of the field Once again, Todd Duggan leads proceedings with Matt Monday in behind. In P2, Lorne McKee has managed to get past James Boardman off the start to go up into P3. Boardman sits in P4 at the moment. McMillan P5, Griffiths P6, Cross in P7, Riali in P8, Houghton in P9, and then Corbett makes up the 10 as we come on to the start of lap 2 here. So we might just check out how some of these drivers, and you see here Will Munro already rolling around in his V8 ute of a Mustang. He's lost that rear boot, and I believe there was a bit of argy-bargy throughout the fountain over the course of proceedings on the start of that first lap. I believe quite a few cars were actually involved, and kind of a bit of a nose to bum moment between many cars. You can see Healy just ahead. He's kind of got a very similar looking car to Will at the moment. And then we'll just check out a little bit further behind. We mentioned him before, Richard Barella, WKMP Simsports car. You see Farrington there missing his bonnet as well for that Shadow Racing machine. And then here is McCartan with Atkins just ahead of him. And then Christian and Brower already in the pits. So we'll see how these drivers go. Remember, it's a very, very short lap here around this circuit. It's I believe it's only 1.19 miles long, something like that. They're only doing low 20s, maybe high 19s. And look at that. You can already see someone has hit the wall massively at the final corner. And this should mean safety car. Might just see if he's out on circuit. I'm not sure if he is just yet. But it should, hopefully, or not hopefully, but it should mean a safety car if he needs the tow. He might just be waiting to let everyone past him here. But, I mean, we're only the start of lap 3, and we have already had a massive contact into the wall. Might just quickly check back a little bit here. So obviously you can see Lorne McKee just in behind. Then there's James Boardman. McMillan in behind him. And then Damien Cross. Mario Riali. That Old Mate and Sons car there is out of sync at the moment. Houghton a little bit further back. Corbett. And then you can see Robert Crow in his brand new Infinity Motorsports livery. Although the side of that car is not looking as fresh as what it did off the start. He's dropped back a couple of spots in this race, but he's still going strong here in P9. I'll have to see how these drivers can contest. Houghton has got a bit of a gap ahead of him now up to Mario Riali. It's around about 6 seconds between P7 and P6 at the moment. But I guess the name of the game as that WKMP Simsports car is still there. So I think I see the safety car possibly on track. I'm not 100% sure on that one, though. We might just check. No, not on track yet. So, not sure if a safety car has been called or not. But even if it hasn't, I think we're definitely going to get one at some point in this race. It is on circuit. There he is there. So, Bruce McLeod on track. Safety car out here at the moment. So, now we have a couple of moments, a couple of laps. Take a little bit of a breather off that start. And it's already happened. We've already got a safety car in this race. Will this race go time certain? You know, if we're only lasting 2 or 3 laps of racing distance and then getting a safety car, you know, 48 laps, that's 24, maybe 20 safety cars you could have in a race technically. You know, it's it could be in for a long one here. So hopefully these drivers can kind of just settle in a little bit, mitigate the red mist, and just take their time, be a little bit cautious throughout the race. You know, not push too hard, because you know, you push a little bit too hard, you can force the mistake in someone in front of you, but you could also be caught out by that mistake that they make as well. The biggest mover of this race so far is Braden O'Loughlin for Frog Leap Juiced Racing. Currently in P27, he has 10 positions gained in this race. Of course, now that we are under safety car, he gets to have a bit of a breather, be bunched up right behind everyone, and we will be able to see how many more spots he might be able to get throughout this race. So, coming on towards lap 5, these drivers have already been pushing super hard Todd Duggan seems to have the pace. So does Lorne McKee. So does Boardman in behind. McMillan, we know he's a threat. We know Cross can be a bit of a smoky threat throughout proceedings as well. Mark Houghton, don't count him out. Won a couple of races last season. Peter Latham as well. Had some great pace last time out. And then, of course, Robbie Griffiths, who is a little bit further back through the field, but I think he might have actually taken a bit of a tactical pit stop off the start, or maybe even actually got caught out in the scrub and had to take his fast repair. And it is a very long pit straight, remember, as well. An incredibly long pit straight at this circuit. It's also a slow pit lane. So the undercut may not be as effective at this circuit, even though it is actually a short lap time, as other circuits, because it is such a slow and long pit lane travel time. It's around about 60 seconds from end to end with a pit stop. So these are going to be the sorts of things that these drivers are going to have to think about, and they would have been thinking about it when planning their strategies for this race as well. Of course, we're 5 laps, or almost 4.5 laps in, as we're on lap 5. 5.5 laps, sorry. We're 5.5 laps in almost. And, these guys are just going to have to just calm down a little bit. We will get a couple of wave rounds past the safety car as Greg Favell and Rob Brower get their wave rounds past Bruce McLeod, driving the Parramatta Izuzu Ute safety car here. So we know Todd Duggan has pace. He's a former winner in vets. He won out at Belle Isle last season, so we know he has some street cred when it comes to street circuits. He has the abilities to get it done. The main talking point right now is that Paul Hayes is not in the field for this race. So the winner at round 2 at Zandvoort, not part of this race. Of course, we've only had 2 winners this season, being Steve Grumley and Paul Hayes. Of course, Grumley winning at both Magny Court and also out at Phillip Island last weekend. So Todd Duggan hoping to back up what he did last season, win a couple of races and really put the challenge on for the championship. It almost felt like a little bit of a Cinderella story last season when he took that first victory, and then suddenly he took a second, and we were starting to think towards the end, you know what, he might actually be kind of close here to having an opportunity to get into Split 1 next season, but still here, still a part of Split 2, which is fantastic to have a driver like that in the Split 2 field. But it will be interesting to see what he can do throughout the rest of the season. Of course, we're at round 4 today here at Long Beach. We've got round 5 next weekend, this coming Thursday for the actual live race, but next weekend round 5 for the broadcast. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the season can go. Twin Ring Motegi next weekend, and then we go to Indy Road, and then back to Australia for Sandown, then up to the UK for Knockhill, then back to the US for the final 2 rounds at Watkins Glen and VIR. So we've got 6 rounds to go after this one. Of course, it is a 10-round season, as it normally is. So anything can happen in vets, though. But we will await for the safety car to pull away. I believe it should pull away towards the end of this lap, as the whole field is now bunched up in a line. And we should be able to go racing once again here at Long Beach. Of course, I've mentioned previous broadcasts, I was very excited for this race. Long Beach is a favourite of mine in terms of street circuits, not only to watch but also to drive when it comes to certain cars. Not every car obviously suits this circuit, but certain cars do. I think, what else should we mention at the moment as well? Ricky Hyde, who's currently in P29, has already gained 9 positions in this race. Of course, still 1 away from Braden O'Loughlin's 10 at the moment. The safety car, Parramatta Isuzu safety car, will pull away, so Bruce McLeod will pull that thing into pit lane. Todd Duggan will control the field once we go green, and he will decide when to pull away from Lorne McKee just in behind him. And we will go racing. Remember, these cars are all bunched up once again. We've already spoken about the statistics on length about why safety cars cause more safety cars. And, well, Long Beach almost sprinkles a bit of magical dust on that statistic and just makes it even worse. because the walls are so tightly together. This circuit is kind of wide at certain spots, but we're going racing once again. Duggan is gone. McKee has followed him pretty well here. He hasn't really been caught napping too much, but Duggan has already built a gap off the restart. So Duggan, McKee, Boardman all into turn 1 here. That's the top 3 at the moment. So we wait to see how well they come through here. We might just check out the fountain, see if people actually make it through nice and tidily as Daniel Sheriffs comes through. Doesn't appear to be anything too horrible, but there have been a couple of moments throughout the race, but I think they're looking pretty tidy at the moment. So we will head back up towards the front here. Lap 7 of this race. We etch closer and closer to lap 8. Remember, blink of an eye, the lap can be over with. It is such a short lap around here. And a pretty intense lap as well. Robert Crowe has had a moment and he's gone into the tyre barrier here at turn 9. That is a massive moment. We'll have to see how everyone can get around him here. Try and get a better angle for you. That's not really a better one. Oh, and Matt Monday has gone into the tyre barrier as well, as Crow now pulls away, and I think Monday might actually be stuck in the tyre barrier here. So Matt Monday in the tyre barrier at the moment. That is not good for him, and O'Loughlin has had a moment now as well. So we've gone racing for 1 lap and someone has already ended up in the tyres. We'll have to see how well people can deal with this. But if Matt Monday can't get that car pulled out of the tyre barrier, we're likely to get another safety car here. Let's check on him at the moment. He's still there in the tyre barrier. You can see that rear wing, it's on top of the tyres. Look, the rear wheels are off the ground. He's not going to be able to get that out of there without someone giving him a nice little nudge. He's getting lapped by the whole field now. He will need a tow from that position, which should mean yet another safety car. So I hope Bruce McLeod didn't need to go to the toilet in between stints, because he's going to be back in that Porsche Parramatta Izuzu safety car, well, I would assume in a matter of moments. So we get, well, a couple of laps of racing here. And it looks to be that we will likely get a couple of laps of safety car once again. So a couple of people jumping on the opportunity now. Martin, Healy and Farrington all into the pits. You have to think they'll be taking their fast repairs to get their cars nice and fixed up. Assuming that we're going to be getting safety car once again. Matt Monday is still sitting at turn 9. So I think he will be awaiting race control to give him the go-ahead to tow that car back to the pits. He can't really go anywhere without getting a knock from someone. It's just one of those things that happen with iRacing, is you can get caught out and get stuck on something just by a bit of graphical overlapping. But we'll see Duggan come through. There you see Monday. You can see that rear wing up on top of the tyre barrier. So it's just kind of wedging him off the ground a little bit now. It's almost like a rear jack, just lifting those rear tyres up. Of course, the supercar's rear-wheel drive, so he has no drive off the decks. Duggan jumps in early, so Duggan's now into the pits. McKee will now take the lead of this race from Todd Duggan, but this should only be a one-stop affair here for this race. So Lorne McKee will now lead James Boardman and Shannon McMillan as the current podium, but Duggan will still be... Shane Patterson split 3 wins the safety car lotto, because they only have one. I suppose that would be, I guess from a racing perspective, that would be winning the lotto. So safety car back out on track. And a heap of people have jumped into the pits now. Duggan, Hoffman, Douglas, Munro, Chin, Taylor, all in the pits now. Of course, we mentioned as well, Todd Martin has been in there. Craig Healy as well. Although he has not taken the fast repair because that rear boot lid is still off the car. Scott Weston, his teammate, right ahead of him there. And it appears that Farrington also is saving that fast repair for later in the race. He hasn't taken it this time around. But we might just follow these guys, see how they end up coming back here to the back of the train. Yeah, so they can all get home from here. So it'll be a one-stop affair as long as they pit now. There's a couple more drivers coming out of the pits. Jason Chin makes his way towards the exit. Will Munro about to come back on track, so he will slot in between Scott Weston and Simon Farrington here on the way back to the end of the safety car train. So we might just follow them a little bit here as they try and get their way back to the end of the train before this restart. So I believe we've had probably about, I want to say, 6 laps of safety car total in this race, 4 of actual on-track racing. Maybe it's a 50-50 split at the moment, unsure. But Munro and Farrington just going to follow each other a little bit here up towards the end of the train. And hopefully we'll just slot back in nicely and keep themselves occupied throughout the chase back to the end of the train. You see there, Weston, Healy, Martin just in behind these guys as well. So these were all the people who have been into the pits, had a stop. They should make it home from this point as long as they can keep it tidy throughout. Will Munro has actually used his fast repair, so we saw him earlier missing his boot lid, so he's almost got a brand new car at the moment in this race now, so he should be good for a bit of a restart here. They are flying around this corner, and there's the train right there. Oh my goodness! They have come in and absolutely derailed. I think that was Brett Taylor who almost looked to be parked up on the track, and Will Munro has absolutely clobbered him under safety car. Unbelievable. See, Farrington was involved as well. He got the knockback from Taylor there, but Munro has just come in and sent Brett Taylor to this shadow realm, unbeknownst to him. Like, he was not being prepared for that. They were absolutely flying up towards the back of that train. I mean, maybe a little bit of hesitation should have been applied there from both drivers a little bit. But that was huge. Unbelievable. That was massive. So Farrington will keep going. I believe he's saved his fast repair, so if he needs to go on the pits again, at least he has that. Chin survived. Luckily he wasn't close enough to be involved. You see Griffiths just ahead for Fishy Motorsports. He has been in the pits twice already, but he should be able to get home from here. But that was wow, that was something else. And as Robert Crow has had yet another incident here, I'll have to see what he's done. Where is he on the list? But that was something else. That was unbelievable. An unbelievable moment. Oh no, they're still going. So these guys trying to catch up to the back of the train now. As my screen is just going off here with incidents, but I think it's just people kind of scooting around each other. But that was an unbelievable moment coming in towards turn 1. I mean, they were flying around like a freight train coming into a train station, and it was almost like the metro was still there, not prepared for what was to come. I mean, you could argue a little bit of hesitation was needed by those drivers. They should have been looking at their relative, knowing that they were approaching at a rate of knots to the back of a almost standstill safety car train. But it makes for unbelievable viewing, doesn't it? Just seeing them come in and, well, one of them clobber one of their opponents. I mean, it doesn't appear that it was malicious intent, like it was a complete accident, but things could have been avoided there for sure. So Will have a lengthy pit stop for that one because, well, he's already used that fast repair. As mentioned, he had a brand new car on track, so he'll have a lot of repairs on that thing, and hopefully Brett Taylor's able to get back out there and have a solid finish to this race. Yeah, Stephen, I think I was speaking to him after the race, and yeah, he mentioned that, I don't know, he was just sucked into following around at speed. I mean, both of them probably shouldn't have been racing that hard up towards the back end of the train, but anyone can do that. Anything can happen at the end of the day, and you know, no one got hurt. At least I think so. I don't think I've heard if Brett Taylor actually got an injury from his wheel from that, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It was avoidable, but can't really do anything now that it's happened. So, but I think, funnily enough, Braden O'Loughlin, we mentioned him earlier, and he had a bit of an incident as well. But he's now 21 positions gained in this race. He still hasn't been into the pits, though, to repair that car damage that he's got. Missing that bonnet on the Frog Leap Juiced Racing entry. But, yeah, that was that was a wild and woolly moment there. But we will await the restart here. Bruce McLeod has now pulled away in the Parramatta Izuzu Ute safety car. So Lorne McKee will now lead James Boardman on the start or the restart of this race. They come around the final corner. The famous turn 11 hairpin, and we are ready to go racing once again here at Long Beach. Can we last longer than 2 laps without a safety car worthy incident here at Long Beach? And look at Boardman. Both him and McKee wanting to put the jets on. They know McMillan in behind has got some good pace about him. This is great to see the improvement that's happened here by McKee. I mean, he's joined Taipan, gained an insane amount of speed over the course of the first 3 races, and now he leads a vets race for his new team. It's quite nice to see it happen. You are right. Duggan was the biggest loser out of that. But one thing to remember, these top guys are yet to pit. Michael Hayes in the chat as well. Good afternoon to you, sir. Steve Murray saying Duggan was the biggest loser out of that safety car. Hoff didn't do so well either. You are correct, but one thing to remember, as Ricky Hyde's actually had a moment here, we might just see what's happened to him. Or you can see the smoke, but he looks to still be going right now, so maybe just a bit of a knock. Oh, and there's a knock on the inside as well. He just turned in on, I believe that was Todd Martin in the Quantum Pecky's Performance Racing car. Oh, there's a massive moment that's happened down at turn 8. Unbelievable action that's happened there. You see cars turned around. At least there was kind of a bit of a... I'm trying to think of who did it when they parted the sea. But yeah, it was almost like a parting of the sea there, right in the middle of the circuit for the drivers to get through. It's a great question, Stephen. Who has not pitted yet? So, yet to pit is pretty much everyone from P1 down to P12. So, McKee, Boardman, McMillan, Cross, Reali, Houghton, Corbett, Peck, Latham, Grumley, Sheriffs and Atkins, all yet to pit in this race. Brower is the driver currently at the top of the list for those who have pit. But he pit on lap number 1. So he will need to pit again. He won't be able to make it from the end from there. The person higher up on the list who can make it home from where they have pit is Robbie Griffiths. He pitted on lap 10, so he should be able to make it home, as well as Michael Hayes. Do you see Todd Duggan just in behind Robbie, though? He pitted on lap 9, so both guys, you would suspect they can make it home on the fuel, because it is a 100% fill in this race. But we will just have to keep an eye on them throughout the proceedings of this race. So we will head back up to the front. McKee and Boardman. This is the battle for the lead at the moment. And you see the gap they've already built out now to Shannon McMillan in behind. It's now 4.5 seconds just about from P1 back to P3. But Boardman is sticking with Lorne here, and he's putting the pressure on him. So I think Lorne has just knocked the inside of the corner there. Hoff now up to P14, probably in the long run in P2 then. You could argue that, yes. He probably is actually arguably P2, maybe even P1. Depends on his pace. Depends on these guys' pace as well, if they can build up the gap before the pit stop. So it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, the later that these guys pit, the less fuel that they could possibly take to actually make it to the end. But remember, it is a balancing act of, you know, how much more fuel you actually put into the car compared to how much fuel people put in the early stop, but also how much you need to get home. So it is it's almost a magic trick that you need to have up your sleeve to know that, you know, when is the point that the tires won't go off. You know, get that perfect combination of a pit stop strategy to happen. You know, it's not rare, but when it does happen, it is incredible to see. So Taylor lets the top two by. It's good to see Taylor back out on track. Currently P30. Still a long way to go, and anything can happen in this race, of course. We've already seen a couple of drivers being involved in massive incidents. I mean, Taylor was one of them, but by no fault of his own. But anything can happen throughout this race. So these guys are going to be pushing hard now to make their way through the traffic. They have Braden O'Loughlin just ahead, who now has a brand new car out on track. He's used his fast repair to fix that bonnet. So we will see how well these guys can do. McMillan is now dropping down. The gap's still about 4.2 to 4.4 seconds back to P3. Boardman's gap ahead of him to Lorne McKee is now spread slightly, but they are approaching traffic, so he might have an opportunity here to get back up underneath the rear wing of the number 273 Type N Esports car, currently in P1 of this race. Mentioned him, Andrew Hoffman. He's currently back up to where he started the race, up to P14 once again after a pit stop here. Although he did pit in on lap 9, so he could make it to the end from there. It will be interesting to see how well he does. Scott Weston in behind on pitted on lap 8. He should make it to the end, I want to say, from lap 8. Maybe a little bit of fuel saving needed, but he should have the pace to get it done. Although that's not who is right behind Andrew at the moment. Currently behind him is the 051 car of Matt Monday. So the 5-1 and the 051 together on circuit at the moment. And Hoff will be hoping to continue the charge up towards the front. So this is the battle for the lead. Boardman dropped off slightly here as Tom Martin is now into the pits for Quantum Peaky's Performance Racing. So he makes his stop. And now, actually no, I was also Ricky Hyde and Robbie Griffiths have all... Wait, no. Robbie Griffiths has pit, hasn't he? Yeah. Ed Cullen and Ricky Hyde have also not pit yet. Steve Murray saying, yeah, he can save so much fuel, just needs to keep up the pace. That is true. And, I mean, with the possibility of more and more safety cars throughout this race as well, Steve, I mean, he could be on here for opportunity after opportunity just to pluck off a couple of spots, save a bit of fuel, make his way through the field. So, remember, it's far from over. I mean, we've already got 2 safety cars in this race. We're coming on to lap 18. We've got 30 laps to go. You know, we're past sort of the quarter mark of the first third of this race. So, anything can happen here throughout the rest of the race. Just have to keep an eye on what happens here in terms of positions. So, the cars that have currently been lapped so far is Will Munro, who's still in the pits fixing his car. I doubt he will actually get out in time to complete 75% of this race. Matt Monday, then Matt McMillan, then Richard Barella, Marty Hanson, Gary Buckland, Brett Taylor, Braden O'Loughlin, and then Todd Martin has also now been lapped by the leaders of this race. So, we will have to see how they go. Jason Chin is at the back of the pack on the lead lap at the moment, P27. But we'll just be looking to continue circulating, hoping to get to the end and maybe just kind of Bradbury a couple of spots up for himself. Ricky Hyde at the moment, as well as Marty Atkins. Both these drivers, see Ricky Hyde there, Apex Esports League, and then Marty Atkins rocking the Pettis Erebus car, although on my thing he has the Type N Esports car, so not sure why he's showing the Pettis car at the moment. Although in saying that, Ricky Hyde has had a moment apparently. I think he's gone into the wall coming up towards turn 8. But both of those drivers, although Ricky Hyde's now actually lost a couple of spots, so it's just Marty Atkins at the moment as Glenn Corbett comes into the pits. Marty Atkins now has 22 positions gained in this race. Rob Brower now goes up with 20 positions gained in this race, and he has pit, although it was on lap 1. He will need to pit again for GCR. Very tight line there through turn 1 in that Mustang. So Corbett, well, that's Craig Healy as he's now passing. He did it as I clicked his name. Corbett in the pits for Hypersonic Racing. He will drop down the order just a little bit here. I mentioned him before, Todd Duggan. He's right up the rear end of Robbie Griffiths, who has got Ed Cullen just ahead of him here for Shadow Racing. So Duggan started on pole, has already had his pit stop. He will make it to the end on fuel, as will Robbie Griffiths just ahead of him. So Griffiths has actually managed, even with going in for a damage stop, he's actually been a little bit lucky here due to the safety cars to actually come out ahead of Todd Duggan after his pit stop. So it's going to be very interesting to see how both of these guys, if they work together to get up towards the front of the field, because they both have had some mega pace throughout this season. Of course, Robbie finishing on the podium last time out at Phillip Island. So I'm sure he will be hoping to better that P3, maybe even get P2, maybe even take victory here today, as Peter Latham is now in the pits as well. So he comes in. Andrew Hoffman should gain a position here, go up into P12, as he does. But the lead of the race at the moment, Lorne McKee. When will him and Boardman come into the pits? When will McMillan come into the pits? We mentioned the undercut, not really an effective maneuver here for this circuit because of how long the pit lane is. The only real strategy sort of bonus you can get. Shane Patterson Hoffer's the world champion of fuel saving. He's a fibber. I believe it was Zandvoort. He said, "Oh yeah, I had enough fuel," and then he mentioned that he was fuel saving like crazy to get to the end. He said he was fuel saving, then he said, "Oh no, I actually had 3 laps of fuel left." Maybe it was Robbie Griffiths who said that in the chat, but maybe it's because they both, Hoff and Griffo kind of just bleeds together in my mind a little bit sometimes. But I could have sworn he said on the Zandvoort broadcast that he both had to fuel save and had 3 laps of extra fuel at the end of the race. So, but it's crazy how much fuel he can actually save throughout a race. It's almost one of legend how much he can actually save. But look at Boardman now putting the pressure. Oh, big slide there. Great catch from McKee in P1. But Boardman's now got a bit of a run here down towards the next corner. And Lorne, that's a bit of a squeeze there on Boardman in behind. Really leaving him no room at all, but was at least good enough to not force him into the wall. Maybe Lorne getting a little bit scared there by James in behind him. I mean, the Boars man is almost one of legend, just having those little unknown moments. He's kind of a dark horse in terms of he can win on his day. He has the pace when it counts, but just hasn't had much luck. Of course, Belle Isle starting on pole and then just getting into the wars all day and ended up finishing far down the order. But he had some good pace to start this car in P3. Of course, McKee started P4 alongside him, so these guys are still battling it out against each other. They're around about the same pace on this circuit. Just have to see how they can mitigate the mistakes, keep it clean, keep it mean, and continue to charge forward towards the end, as we are now 2 laps away from the halfway point of this race. We're on lap 22 at the moment. As we might just check out the man who finally found himself a team, Robert Crow. He's been in the wars since the start, although he started from P6. He's now dropped down the order a bit, down in P23 here for Infinity Motorsports. So Infinity now back up to 3 cars entered in Split 2. Well, not just Split 2, but VA Veterans as a whole. Of course, Mark Howard having a bit of a sabbatical this season from the actual races, but does show up to a practice from time to time. So I know Infinity hoping to get Mark back into the seat for next season, or even the season after that. So hopefully we'll see 4 Infinity cars on the grid for veterans before year end. So, but Crow, he's had some great pace all day. Had a pretty good practice session fairly good qualifying to start from P6 on debut for Infinity, as he has a bit of a wide line through turn 5 there. So, oh sorry, turn 6. So just interesting to see, but yeah, he's got the pace to get past these guys. He's just got to try and get that racecraft down pat, keep it clean, as he just gets so close to the wall there. That was like nothing was between the car and the wall then. That was just a hold your breath moment and hope for the best. There has apparently been a moment with Brett Douglas. I'm trying to see where he is on my screen. Oh, and there's been a massive stack at turn 11. That is a big one. Couple of drivers missing a boot lid, missing a bonnet. I don't believe anyone's needing a tow. So I don't think we will get a safety car at this stage, but everyone jumping up on the opportunity now to get in the pits. Boardman now comes in and is back out on track. So he took advantage of the safety car. It'll now separate him and McKee slightly. He comes out just behind his teammate Crow, who we were just talking about a little bit there. We'll see here if Robert actually lets him past or not. Obviously knowing that James was in contention for a victory here, and he does. So already the team play's coming together for Infinity for this race, and Robert just doing the nice thing, letting his teammate past, who has an opportunity at a victory. Damien Cross into the pits now as well for Century Motorsports. As somebody say KFC. 555 Mustang into the pits. So McKee, McMillan, Reale, Houghton, Sheriffs, and Grumley and Atkins are all yet to pit. That is the top 7 of this race so far. We won't go through how many positions they've gained, as they will change once they go into the pits, but McKee has got a fairly nice gap here. Of course, it's around about a minute. I would say at its lowest point, maybe a minute and 4-second pit lane travel time. And the gap back to Boardman is at 60 seconds at the moment. So Boardman, if he can keep the pace up here, he could actually, I know I've been saying the undercut doesn't really work around this circuit, but he could actually undercut Lorne here when Lorne comes in. So he needs to gain a bit of time over the cars in behind, as Boardman is making moves up through the field. So, although don't forget about Griffiths, Hoffman and Duggan, those guys are all in contention for victory as well. They have pit as Lorne McKee now comes in. So McMillan will now take over the lead of the race. McKee will come in. We'll go with Andrew Hoffman because he is currently at the lead of the pack of cars who have pit. Reale and Houghton also join McKee in pits as well. So we'll see what the WKMP operator can do here and where he can come out, whether it's ahead of McKee. McKee still in the pits now. Hoffman comes around turn 11 to come down the main straight of Long Beach. And Andrew Hoffman will take the provisional lead of this race. Although in saying that, we are a little bit unsure on whether he will need another pit stop as he pit on lap 9. But time will tell what the outcome is. Remember, McMillan is yet to pit. He's 30 seconds ahead of Hoffman, and it is a 60-second, maybe even 70-second pit lane travel time here at Long Beach. So Hoffman at the moment is the provisional leader. Of course, McMillan leads on track. He does need to pit. Griffiths as well and McMillan comes in. So Shannon McMillan into the pits for WKMP Simsports. His teammate currently in P2, provisional P1. Look, he's in the same spot he was when we turned to him before when McKee came in. So Hoffman should actually take the lead here off his teammate and lead his first race this season for Split 2. The Hoff working the magic a little bit here. And he should take the lead coming on to lap 26. He does. So McMillan is now P2. We'll see where Robbie Griffiths is in comparison. Griffiths comes over the line with Todd Duggan right up behind him here. Both of them get past McMillan. Craig Healy, he's kind of come out of nowhere a little bit here. P5 at the moment. Will he get past McMillan? He does. And Farrington also gets the job done, as well as Hayes in behind. Great to have you here. Trying to follow, but internet keeps cutting out. Middle of nowhere, east of Ballarat. It's unfortunate when the internet doesn't want to play ball, unfortunately. So, Andrew Hoffman leads proceedings now. Here for Split 2, Round 4 at Long Beach for the V8 Veterans, presented by Kumho Tyres. A massive shout out to our series sponsors, Kumho Tyres, Logitech, Parramatta Izuzu Ute, Player One Sim Gear, and Nova Simsports. Thank you all for supporting the V8 Veterans, and to any of our viewers watching today, if you haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe, hit the bell button, so you are notified anytime we go live on a Sunday afternoon/evening for the Split 2 action, and anytime we go live on a Friday night for the Split 3 Driver's Kitchen. If you're watching us on Facebook, be sure to hit the like button on the page so you get notified whenever one of our races is going live as well on a Friday or Sunday. So Duggan has now gotten past Robbie Griffiths here and is now up into P2. The question is, how close can he get up to Andrew Hoffman? 10 seconds is the gap. Yep, that's right, Stephen. He did take Griffiths. We've now got onto that little battle here. So this is the battle for P2. Can Duggan now close the gap up to Hoffman ahead and take the lead of this race? Shane Patterson saying, mine was doing the same. I dropped the playback on YouTube to 720p and it's running smooth now. It may help. I do find that as well. Sometimes the internet just can't actually handle trying to load up the 1080p stream. So yeah, if you drop back to 720, it'll still look fine. It's better than 360. 360 just looks like PS2 graphics, but yeah, 720 you should be all right. Normally on a decent or semi-decent internet connection. So, but we will await to see how well Duggan and Griffiths can move their way up towards Andrew Hoffman, currently in P1. Boardman, as mentioned, has come out ahead of McKee here. He's got Damien Cross closely in behind. So we'll have to see if these drivers can keep it clean as they come in here towards turn 1. You can see him right up behind Jason McCartan now as they come through the fountain section. We might just keep an eye on this tasty little battle at the moment, because this is the battle to get back into the top 10. McCartan has done something magical today. He's almost replicated his Phillip Island performance of last season. He's now up 21 positions in this race. So, although he did pit on lap 8, he will need to do a bit of fuel saving to get home. But he should be able to do it. So, Boardman really putting the pressure on McCartan now in P10. He's almost having a little bit of a peek here down the inside up towards turn 9. It would be a bit of a, I don't want to say desperado move to go down the inside here, but definitely one that takes a bit of balls to get it done. But Boardman just keeping the pressure on him. Oh, as they come head to toe into turn 11. And I think one thing some drivers need to learn is you sometimes just need to take the deeper line just to avoid the car ahead of you coming into that corner, because you're all stacking in like a house of cards, all breaking into that corner as they flow on through on lap 29. And look at the late dive from Boardman down the inside. That move right there was incredible, as McCartan's been forced out wide here by Damien Cross. But that move by Boardman, what a move down the inside that was. We might just move back up now to P2 of Todd Duggan. He is catching Andrew Hoffman ahead at a rate of knots. The gap is now down to 8.7 seconds between P1 and P2. So Todd Duggan, we've mentioned the pace that he's had in the past. He is pushing super hard right now to close that gap and put the pressure on Hoffman in P1 to try and claim victory here at Long Beach. Although Robbie Griffiths is sticking with Duggan at the moment. Although the gap has spread slightly between the two of them. Just check out where Hoffman is on track at the moment. You see him here coming up towards turn 6. We might just check out some of the battling in the field at the moment. See here Riali with McKee just in behind him. McKee is now on a charge to get up back onto the rear end of James Boardman, who ended up ahead of him after the pit stop period. So Boardman, Cross, Riali and McKee all looking to have a bit of a comeback here. McCartan's lost out a little bit now from the battle that's happened. He's now under pressure from Robert Crow just in behind him here for the battle of P14. Mark Houghton is slowly creeping his way up the order as well. See Mark Peck just in behind them here for Quantum Pecky's Performance Racing. Rob Brower a couple of positions behind. I see, we'll just quickly go up as well. Craig Healy just rotating around at the moment on his own. Still has that rear end missing here on this car. And then Simon Farrington as well, missing the bonnet still. So I think he's actually had another moment possibly that's... Oh no, I don't think he's actually fixed the car yet. So you see this train starting to form behind them. The rear end of this train is Boardman on the rear end of Weston. But we'll go back, just check out the rest of the field a little bit here. So Chin up to P20 now. So P19 actually. He's now into the top 20. See Peter Latham as McCartan comes in. So Jason McCartan has now come into the pits. We'll take yet another stop. So we see Latham here as well. Was very close last time out to a P3 at Phillip Island. As we might see a move here into turn 1 on Chin. We'll have to see how close he can get. He's looking down the inside. Chin covers slightly. Latham backs out, and look at the dive almost there by Grumley into turn 1. That was, well, he almost tried to pull off what Boardman did a bit earlier on McCartan. But that one there was a close one. Atkins in behind them as well. Number 72 Commodore. Daniel Sheriffs rotating in behind. Brett Taylor as well, I believe as well. Will Munro has actually officially pulled out of this race after that incident under the second safety car. So he couldn't get the car fixed in time to get back out on track. But luckily Brett Taylor is now back on the lead lap. At least for the cars around him, and is still rotating. Currently in P23, so he hasn't lost out too much from that incident, and I believe through the grapevine things should be all good between them. Todd Martin in behind as well. Quantum Pecky's Performance Racing. Gary Buckland there. You see the massive dent on the side of that car. And then Jason McCartan, who's just come out of pits, out in P26. Richard Barella at the moment in P27 for WKMP Simsports. Marty Hansen, you see him just in behind there for Taipan Esports. Ed Cullen at the moment for Shadow Racing, just rotating around in P29 and making up the top 30. Matt McMillan there, WKMP Simsports. Matt Monday back out on track after getting stuck on the tyre barriers at turn 9. Fletcher Christian just in behind, still rotating as well. Ricky Hyde, I don't believe, is on circuit, so we will go up back towards the front, and there he is, Andrew Hoffman. Leads the race. The gap is now down to 6.5 seconds between him and Duggan in behind. And Duggan is on an absolute charge now to catch him. You'll see him come around the final corner now just in behind. So that is the gap between the leader and P2 and 3. It's very close at this point. You see Hoffman. McCartan will get out of the way of the leader here and allow him through in the chrome red Super Cheap Auto sponsored WKMP car of Andrew Hoffman here, the number 51. So Duggan has now got the gap down to 6.2 seconds between the top two. Damien Cross, I think, has actually had a moment here. He has. He spun it at turn 11. So Cross has had a moment. And we'll see here. We'll make our way through. So Boardman's now got a bit of a gap to McKee. Then there's Scott Weston, Brett Douglas, Michael Hayes just ahead of him here. A bit of a new livery for that car. Farrington just ahead of them. Then Shannon McMillan still rotating. Craig Healy still getting around. And then Robbie Griffiths in P3. Todd Duggan in P2. And as we mentioned, Andrew Hoffman in P1. You see the lap traffic just behind him. So there's a bit of a buffer now between P1 and P2 in terms of on-track traffic. But the gap has now shrunk under 6 seconds. You see there, Hoffman wasn't even at the line yet when Duggan came around that final corner. So he's etching closer and closer. And just kind of teasing us a little bit with what could possibly come from a battle for the lead of this race between the top 3 drivers here at Long Beach. And we could be on for an incredible end to this race. We've got 14 laps to go of this incredible Long Beach street circuit. A concrete tarmac jungle, if ever there was one. It's a beautiful part of the world. One part I'd love to go to if ever I get the chance. And I mean, this is just a track that, I don't know, there's just something about it. I know it's completely flat, but there's something about the fountain, the long curved front straight. You know, then you got the Formula D section at turn 9, 10, and 11. It's you know, it's got so much character about it, and I know that it can be a bit of a shit show sometimes, but I don't know, it's just got a nice soft place in my heart. The gap is now down 5.5 seconds between Hoffman and Duggan. There's Griffiths in behind him. So they are etching closer and closer. I think by the time we hit lap 40, they should be on the rear end of the leader of this race, battling for the lead. Let's check out the lap times actually. Last lap, Hoffman doing a 21.09. Duggan doing a 20.75. Griffiths doing a 20.5. So, see them now coming through the fountain. As Farrington is now in the pits. So, we'll just quickly check out this little battle pack that's starting to form here for the battle for 7th place. It goes all the way back to Lorne McKee here. You see him. James Boardman just ahead. Then it's Brett Douglas and then Scott Weston. So this is now the battle for P7. This little train of drivers as they come in. Oh, and there's a knock! There's a knock between the two of them here at the fountain. We see James going onto the grass, onto the flowers there. Needs to be careful. Bit of traffic coming through now. We'll just check out Steve Grumley here, SLS Racing. We'll see if James is still in the flower bed. He is. Oh, he's stuck. He needs to be careful here of how he gets out of it. He's now got the leaders hounding onto him here, coming up towards him. So the gap is now under 5 seconds between Hoffman and Duggan. Hoffman needs to put the foot down. He did a 20.9 last lap, but it wasn't good enough. Duggan did a 20.2. We're on to lap 36, 12 to go. Boardman, I believe, has gotten going again off the flower bed. So at least he's not too under pressure from the leader. It almost felt like Hoff was going to hit the wall then, and it was almost, I thought he was going to run a bit wide. But the gap is shrinking. Duggan can smell blood. He can see that chrome red Commodore down the road from him, and it's pushing him to go harder and harder to close that gap. He can taste victory. Look at him. Hoffman is under pressure right now. He's getting the flash going, trying to get Farrington out of the way because he does not want to get held up coming through these final couple of corners. It's only going to make the gap shrink even more. He needs to push now. It's time to push for him. Farrington's still not out of the way now. And Hoffman will be fuming a little bit here. He'll be wanting to get past. Duggan now down to 4 seconds away from the lead of this race. The energy's rising a little bit here. Hoffman has decided not to continue flashing. I guess he's going to be a little bit patient here, but he's going to need to push. He needs to push to try and get past the lap traffic, because if he gets caught out here, Duggan has gotten past McCartan, so has Griffiths. So now there's no one between Hoffman and Duggan at the moment. He has no buffer. He's increased the pace slightly, but the last lap was a 21.1 by Hoffman, a 26 by Duggan. And that was behind traffic, so Hoffman needs to get a move done to get through the traffic here because there's no buffer. He's got no defense in behind. He's a sitting duck right now to Todd Duggan, who is an absolute hound when it comes to hunting his prey on the circuit. Toddy is absolutely flying. Shane, you are correct. He is pushing super hard. And look at Hoffman right up the rear end of Farrington now. He wants to try and get it done down the inside to get that buffer. You see the gap between the top two. Here's Duggan. He's got some absolutely mega pace. The last lap for Hoffman was a 21.2. Last lap for Duggan was a 21.7 the last lap for Hoffman. A 21.2 last lap for Duggan. Griffiths doing a 21.1. And now there is actually a bit of buffer for Hoffman. You see the drivers getting out of the way of the leaders at the moment. Doing them a bit of a nicety here. Letting them through, letting them race. We've got 10 laps to go of this Long Beach race. The gap is now down to 2.3 seconds between P1 and P2. The traffic has held up Hoffman here, and Duggan was lucky. He caught them all while they were parked up. He's going to force the move on Farrington. Farrington knows it as well. He knows Duggan would have forced it, so he just let it happen. He's going to move out of the way of Griffiths here. And the top three have now got no buffer. Hoffman is pushing to separate the gap a bit more. Brett Douglas saying that was the end of their team's race. I'm going to assume you got caught up in something there. Unfortunately, I can't get a replay of it, but we're going to have to go back to the lead because this is an enticing battle. A 22.6 the last lap for Hoffman, a 21.9 the last lap for Duggan. He was not helped with that lap traffic. He was held up for about a lap and a half by Farrington just ahead of him, and then had even more traffic past the fountain. So he needs to push now. He knows the gap is small. Look at Duggan. He doesn't even need to do much to put the pressure on him. He just needs to keep the pace up. The natural pressure is rising on this. The natural pressure is mounting on the back of Andrew Hoffman to take a, I don't want to say debut, but an inaugural split 2 victory. You see Farrington's parked up, so something's happened to his car. Michael Hayes saying it was nerve-wracking at this point. It would be. Would be absolutely nerve-wracking. These guys are pushing super hard. I want to go through the field, but I want to see this battle unfold. They're getting super close. We've got 8 laps to go as Hoffman will lead them on to lap 40. We're edging closer to the hour mark of this race. But it's lap 40 now. 8 laps to go. Duggan will be pushing hard to get the gap closed. Griffiths is still within the hunt, though. Only 5 seconds between Hoffman and him. And if something happens, he will be in the prime position to take the lead of this race if Duggan and Hoffman have an incident. The gap now, 2 seconds between the leaders. That is exactly right. The last thing he would need is a safety car, although we are only 3 laps away from guaranteed no safety car for the last 5 laps. So he needs to hope and pray that the next 3 laps, there is nothing that causes it. So the gap now, it's sitting around 2 seconds. We know Duggan has the pace. Hoffman last lap managed to do a 20.9, but it still wasn't good enough. Duggan did a 20.4. He's outlapping him by about half a second every single lap at the moment. As there's a bit of smoke at turn 11. I don't think anyone's still there. They're not. They've gone away, which is lucky. Rob Brower is now in the pits as well as Barella. Farrington is towed back. I don't think we're actually going to get a safety car at this point, as it is Long Beach, and I think the organisers might have actually decided to not allow it within 10 laps of the end, because you don't really want to have like a 3-lap dash around this place. So Hoffman leads Duggan to Griffiths, to Healy, to McMillan, to Hayes, to Weston, to Douglas, to McKee, and then Houghton. That is the top 10 of this race. And Hoffman will be sweating now. The gap is now 1.4 seconds. Duggan is etching closer and closer. Duggan has a bit of a buffer between him and Griffiths. Brower sitting there. You see him in the blue GCR car. Is not in contention for the lead of this race. But he has got a front row view for what could be a main event caliber battle for the lead between Hoffman and Duggan. Last lap for Hoffman, a 20.99. Duggan had a 20.5, so he's still lapping half a second faster. Bruce McLeod, unless we do a Michael Mazzi, that is true, but I doubt we will. So we come on now, lap 42. The gap is 1.2 seconds between Hoffman and Duggan. As I mentioned, Duggan lapping half a second faster than Hoffman at the moment. And he's done it again. Hoffman did a 20.7 last lap. Duggan did a 20.3. So around about the last, I believe, 6 or 7 laps, Duggan has outlapped Hoffman by half a second. That is what he's been closing the gap down every single lap. Brower's just hanging on to them here with a front row seat for the lead of the race. We might just see if we can feel the intensity by going on board with Todd Duggan as he chases down, like the lion chases down the gazelle. He tries to get closer and closer to his prey to take the lead of the race from Hoffman. They're going to circulate round to get onto lap 43. You see him take the shallow line through turn 11. It's 1.1 seconds is the gap between these top two drivers. There is nothing in it between Hoffman and Duggan. And look at the braking into turn 1. Nice and smooth wheel work here. The gap is under a second. Look at him right up behind Hoffman now. Cool, calm and collected is Todd Duggan at the moment. We'll go on board with Hoff. We'll see what the wheelwork says about how he feels. See if he can keep it smooth, straight and narrow. Nice and smooth through turn 7. But this is our battle for the lead. We're going to etch closer to lap 44 to 5 laps to go. So we should not get another safety car at this point in proceedings. Hoffman needs to push if he wants to claim victory today. Last lap, he did better that time before this one. Was a 20.7 for Hoffman. Duggan was a 20.5, so only 0.2 gained the lap before this. This lap, though, what do they do? Hoffman does a 20.7 again. Duggan does a 20.4, so gained about 0.3, but look at how close he is now. Up on the back of Andrew Hoffman. He's only got to survive 5 laps in front of Duggan. He's got to defend as best he can. There's not many overtaking opportunities around here. He's got to remember where they are. Cover the inside. Keep the car straight. And just do his best to hold off arguably one of Split 2's best drivers in the whole field. Of course, with no Paul Hayes in this race, Todd Duggan leads the charge for Nova Simsports today. Hoffman has led proceedings since the final round of pit stops. He took the lead from Shannon McMillan and has led the race. But Duggan has clawed back a 10-second gap, and look at him. He's right there with him now as they will come on to lap 45 out of 48. It's 4 laps to go around this Long Beach street circuit. Hoffman will be pushing harder than ever to keep the gap. Last lap for Hoffman was a 20.8. Todd Duggan did a 20.6. Only 0.2 gained the last lap by Duggan. There's nothing in it at the moment between the top two. Hoffman will be pushing hard to keep this job done, to get onto the top step. But we also need to remember, what is the fuel situation? Does Hoffman have enough to make it over the last 4 laps? I know, Bruce, I've missed someone backing into the wall, unfortunately, but I'm just so enticed by the lead of this race, by the battle for the lead. Or see Brower just losing slightly there out of the exit of turn 9. So here is the narrative. 3 to go. Bit of lap traffic, a gap of less than half a second. We know that Duggan can outlap Hoffman by half a second. That's how he gained the 10 seconds over the last 20-odd laps. So the battle is on. The heat has risen. The pressure is at capacity right now. Can Duggan get it done, or can Hoffman hold him off? Oh, bit of a wiggle there on exit for Todd Duggan. Michael Hayes saying he didn't expect to be this far up in split 2. It's good to see as well. Currently P6, 22 positions gained in this race. You've done very well today, Michael, to be up in P6. But this is the narrative that needs to get pushed at the moment, is this battle for first. We don't want to miss a move if it happens. We're so close to the end. The gap has now gone out to about a second. See Barella just getting out of the way of the cars ahead. But the gap's now shrunk as they come into turn 11. Hoffman is so close to the rear end there of Brett Taylor. The gap is now back to half a second. We've got 2 laps to go here at Long Beach. Who can get the move done? Who can take advantage and be immortalised in season 15 history? Duggan yet to take a win this season. Of course, he had 2 last season. He wants to get a 3rd in Vets. Hoffman yet to take a victory in split 2. Which one of these guys can get it done? Griffiths is on for a P3 at the moment, but he will be there if these guys have a tangle. But he is not... Oh, there's a spin and they've had contact! Into turn 7, there's been contact! Hoffman comes back, almost hits his teammate. And Griffiths takes the lead! As I just mentioned it... Or as he comes round wide through turn 8. And Hoffman's in the wall! Out of P2, Hoffman lights up the rears and goes smack bang into the wall. Unbelievable. Griffiths was 7 seconds back, as I mentioned, saying he's not in the battle, but he's still in the hunt if something happens, if they tangle. They then have the tangle, and he gets into P1. We've got white flag lap. Lap 48, final lap of this race. Griffiths leads Duggan by 1.3 seconds. Duggan not quite close enough to really get a move done at this point. And it is poor Hoff. He led so well. Just a shame that at that moment in time it happened. But Griffiths now leads this race. He was in P3, he's now in P1. This also now promotes Craig Healy into P3 at the moment, as long as he can hold off Shannon McMillan in behind. I mean, do you blame him, Stephen? Like, that would have been such a disheartening moment. He would have had a meatball from hitting the wall. You can't really blame him in that moment in time, but the narrative now is Robbie Griffiths has stuck in it, stayed clean, stayed close enough to the leaders to get past them if the tangle happened. It did happen. And he will come round the final 2 corners now of Long Beach. And as long as he can keep it clean, which he does, Robbie Griffiths for Fishy Motorsports will become the 3rd winner of Split 2 Season 15 for the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans. And McMillan has gotten past Healy at the final hour to take P3. What an incredible end to that race. And I have to agree with you, Stephen. I feel bad for Hoff on that one. He did so well to lead proceedings for so long. We were going to be on for an intense final lap battle, but just a shame that it happened in the dying embers of this race. A fantastic end to a race that's narrative really spelt out. Carnage at the start and then a chase to the end. Hayes finishes P5, a great finish for him today. See Griffiths doing the obligatory burnout at turn 1. It was an impressive victory for him here today. But what a race that was. What an end. I think the last couple of rounds, it has been the story of final lap controversy. It happened again. It happened 2 weeks in a row. It was very unlucky. I think Hoffman had some good pace today. It would have been interesting to see the battle happen between him and Duggan. But, just one of those things that unfortunately happens at the worst moments in time. We will bring up our race results now for this Long Beach race. I don't expect any of the drivers to be in the green room, but if Robbie Griffiths, Todd Duggan or Shannon McMillan is watching and they are available, please hop into the green room. We will have a chat after this race. If you're not there by the time I finish reading the results, then we will call it there. But winning today, out of nowhere it seems like, for Fishy Motorsports, Robbie Griffiths takes victory here for the V8 Veterans Round 4 at Long Beach Season 15. Todd Duggan ends up finishing P2, so still a fairly good finish for him, even though he was on the charge to P1. Still manages to bring it home in P2. Shannon McMillan finishes today's race in P3. And then P4 going to Craig Healy. P5 today going to Michael Hayes. Very, very impressive finish for him today. And then in P6, Scott Weston. P7 there for Type N Esports. It is Lorne McKee. Mark Peck there finishes out in P8. P9 going to Peter Latham. And making up the top 10 is Brett Douglas. So an impressive race for him there for Valve Motorsport. Mark Houghton finishes today's race in P11. Steve Grumley comes home in P12. P13 going to Marty Atkins. Robert Crow on debut for Infinity Motorsports finishes the race in P14, so an impressive finish for him there. P15, Daniel Sheriffs. P16 goes to Damien Cross, and then P17 to Todd Martin. Rob Brower for GCR finishes today's race in P18. And then P19, we have James Boardman for Infinity Motorsports. P20, unfortunate for him, but Andrew Hoffman finishes there after a second last lap incident, puts him in the wall, and his day was done, unfortunately. It was an impressive performance up until that point, but just a shame for him. Jason Chin finishes today's race in P21, and then P22 going to Brett Taylor from Valve Motorsport. Good to see him have a bit of a comeback after that incident under safety car. P23 going to Jason McCartan today. P24 goes to Mario Reali. And then P25, Gary Buckland from Old Mate and Sons. And then we have in P26, Andrew... Why does it says Andrew Hoffman on my screen for P26, but he's on the official results. It's Marty Hansen today in P26. Matt McMillan finishes today's race in P27. Then Ed Cullen finishes out in P28. P29 goes to Richard Barella, and then P30 goes to Matt Monday. Unfortunate for him on that early incident getting stuck on the tyre barrier. Simon Farrington comes home in P31, and then Fletcher Christian in P32. Ricky Hyde comes home in P33. Glenn Corbett in P34, and then P35 to Braden O'Loughlin, and then Will Munro, unfortunately, not finishing this race after the incident under safety car. And I believe that is everyone in terms of non-race controllers and people who actually started today's race. The podium are not in the green room today, ladies and gentlemen, so we will call it at the end there. That was an unbelievable end to that race. One of controversy, one of unfortunate events for certain drivers, but it was such a fun race to call. I'm looking forward to next Sunday to call the race at Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. So we fly from US to Japan, then we come back to the US the week after for Indy Road, and then back home to Australia for Sandown. It was an unbelievable race. It was a fun one full of carnage, as Long Beach always is. I hope you all enjoyed today's race. It was, as mentioned, it was a fun one to call, and I look forward to next weekend for Twin Ring Motegi. Hope to see you then for round 5 of the Kumho Tyres season 15 of V8 Veterans Split 2 broadcast. I've been your commentator, Hamish Munro. I hope you've had a great day. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time.